India, but I love India. I have to say this because कहाँ मिलेगा इतना content?
Yeah, this man, Kunal Kamra, a stand-up comedian, has recently come into the limelight. A lot of controversy and debate over a few tweets made by Kamra on Supreme Court. And so much so that a special panel, parliamentary committee, they have asked the Twitter policy head about the tweeters. That panel asked why Kamra's offensive tweets were allowed to remain on platform. So let us quickly have a look of the proceedings. Well, Kunal Kamra had started publishing tweets on November 11, 2020, when the top court was hearing the appeal of journalist Arnab Goswami against the Bombay High Court's order rejecting his plea seeking interim bail in a 2018 abatement of suicide case. And then, after the top court granted interim bail to Goswami on November 11, Kamra again published various tweets. And it was alleged that today people believe that they can boldly and brazenly condemn the Supreme Court of India and its judges by exercising their freedom of speech. So it's a case of contempt of court. Now, for such a case, the consent of either the Attorney General or the Solicitor General is necessary under Section 15 of the Contempt of Courts Act 1971 for initiating contempt proceedings against a person. Attorney General K.K. Venugopal had granted consent for initiation of criminal contempt proceedings against Kunal Kamra for his tweets. He said, under the Constitution, the freedom of speech is subject to the law of contempt. Now we have a few questions, right? And who can best answer those questions? We thought that it should be again an Attorney General of India, of course, the ex, Mukul Rohatgi. So we are placing questions one by one. Our first question to ex-Attorney General of India, Mr. Mukul Rohatgi. Do you think it could be a case of contempt of court? How big an issue is it really? How Supreme Court may or should look at it? Has our present Attorney General done a mistake in giving consent for proceedings of contempt of court? Now let us see what are the answers from Mr. Rohatgi.
The Attorney General in the past. In my view, the tweet of Mr. Kamra may be in bad taste, but I don't think it is contempt. And I think it's too small an issue to be taken note of. People in this country are entitled to speak their mind, express their feelings, maybe a little outspoken, maybe sarcastic, maybe in bad taste, but the shoulders of the court are broad enough. And you know, in everyday common talk, don't people say that most politicians are corrupt, most bureaucrats don't work, etc., etc. I mean, these are not things which one should take notice of. And in my view, the Attorney General should not have granted permission. These things come and these things go. But surely the Supreme Court's foundation must rest on much surer ground. I told you in the beginning, I don't think it is contempt. I have told you it may be completely outspoken, it may be completely wrong, but that does not make the Supreme Court any less supreme or any less glorious. A lot of people say things about other people, but you know, you shrug a shoulder and move away. I am reminded of.
Well, Our next question to you, then what might be a case of contempt? Would you like to call the expression of frustration at individual level a contempt of court? Say I'm struggling for justice and suffering from injustice. Someone seems long and throws a chapel to the judges. Would you not call it a contempt?
These things go by. You know, according to me, contempt is actually something which makes it impossible for a court to kind of function. There have been cases where people have thrown chappals and slippers at judges. Some contempt action was taken in an incident. But you know, even there, I would hesitate to take contempt action because it may be the outpouring of a frustrated litigant. And in this country, litigation goes on for generations. Take a case where a man is without job for 20 years, trying to get his job back. He throws a chappal at a judge. That is not throwing a chappal at an individual. It's kind of at the system that I am struggling for 20 years. Okay. So one has to see it in a broader light, with broader shoulders. And see, the court also functions in a public gaze. People are bound to say things. So I don't think one should have taken notice of these things at all. It's not a concerted attack, let's say, by a government against a court, okay, or by a parliament against a court. It's not one of those, one small person here and there comes and says something and goes away. In fact, by taking notice, you are unnecessarily giving importance to something which should have just kind of been shrugged away.
Well, while Mr. K.K. Venugopal has given his consent, he has made some comment. Then what about Venugopal's comment on the priority between freedom of speech and contempt of court? Do you agree with him?
Well, let me tell you, Karan, Mr. Venugopal is a very well-known, renowned, and an experienced lawyer. I hold him in the highest esteem as a lawyer. He has nearly 65 to 70 years of experience as a lawyer. But in this particular instance, I would disagree with him. I would lean in favor of freedom of speech unless it is a calculated attack in making the delivery of justice impossible. That is the real test. This is not one of those cases, and as you rightly said in your article, and I want.
Well, thank you. You have categorically expressed your views that you don't agree with the present Attorney General of India, Mr. K.K. Venugopal. So here is our fourth question. That do you think the law of contempt is not at all necessary, and should it be abolished?
As you know, it was not codified. It was there for more than 100 years. They have abolished it. Now, I am not sanguine whether we should abolish it or not. I don't think it needs to be abolished in India. But the law is so framed that itself, it's an apology. In as much as the law says it will be used only as a measure or a last measure, only in extreme situation. Normally, if contempt is committed, apology must be accepted by the court. Please mark the words. It must be accepted by the court. Only if it is found that the apology is not in good faith will it be rejected. If an apology is made in the first instance and comes from the heart, the court is bound to accept. The punishment is maximum 6 months and the fine is maximum 2 months. Now, the law itself is in the form of an apology because it leans in favor of freedom to criticize, maybe outspoken, maybe satire. If the law is framed that way, as opposed to let's say the Psychotropic and Narcotic Drugs Act, the law is framed in a harsh way. The moment you commit an offense which is of some sizable quantity, the minimum is 10 years. 10 years to 20 or life. That's the way that law is framed. It has hardly any escape route. Here the law is framed, as I said, as an apology, leaning towards freedom of speech in a democracy, where people have disparate, wrong, right ideas. So if that is the context and every action must be judged in terms of the law must be seen in terms of its context. If that is so, then I don't think it was a wholesome exercise of jurisdiction to have granted consent.
Then, Mr. Rohatgi, where do you find the problem really lies? Is it an individual level, or a system problem, or the problem is with the law itself? Please.
If you see the statistics, that for a variety of reasons, a property case or a case involving some kind of rights, a company dispute, commercial disputes, intellectual property disputes, take years and years in our country. 1 decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, 4 decades. If it takes so much time and generations pass, would not there be frustration amongst the litigants who use the system? And if they use the system and are frustrated with the system, and the long delays are not because of the court system alone, it is because of the nature of our laws. We have four appeals in every case. It's because the lawmakers, the babus who make the actual law, are not really well trained in making a law. A difference between a comma and a full stop can make a world of a difference to a man of words and go up to the Supreme Court, whether a comma or a semicolon, stuff like that. So if you have those kind of laws which are not properly drafted, you have a system by which you have innumerable appeals, you have a system by which a lot of good lawyers don't want to become judges, you have a system by which persons who become judges at the first level ultimately rise by virtue of seniority and may not strictly be on merit. If there is an amalgam of so many features, the result of which is that it takes 20 to 50 years for one litigation to end, and you have a host or millions of people who are frustrated, and they say that the administration of justice in this country has failed with the Supreme Court at the apex, then what? Do you think it is content?
Well, thank you. So, our last question. Do you accept that the laws are not in black and white only? It has some gray also. And what would be your observation on that? The Supreme Court judges are also human beings and not beyond mistakes.
Been said by the Supreme Court itself. Because let me tell you, and I am in courts every day, and I can give you a large number of examples. If the same cause is brought between different benches of the Supreme Court on the same day, the result will and can be and surely well nigh be different. So because justice is delivered not by artificial intelligence but by a human being, you may feel because the law is never absolutely black and white, there are grays. You may feel that let this rest with the High Court. Why should the Supreme Court interfere? Another judge on the same day on the same facts may feel no, the High Court has made a horrendous mistake, we must interfere. And I tell you, if there was a court above the Supreme Court, then that court would also reverse decisions of the Supreme Court as the Supreme Court reverses of the High Court, and the High Court reverses of the district judge, and the district judge reverses of the Munshi.